And the Legal Association then changed all law degrees to JD. So technically, are we lawyer doctors, doctor? What do you think?
You're a Juris Doctor, which sounds even better.
Yeah, I'm a Juris Doctor, but I think that it's kind of backdoor. That's sort of that's kind of how I am. I always question things. And I think that Steve has really given sort of a contextual background to what has happened over the first 10 years of exopolitics. What I've come here to CITES, to this summit to really talk about is the next 10 or 11 years, and that is in terms of what the larger astronomical and cosmic cycles that will be occurring in an amazing synchrony that will serve as motors or propellants of the process of disclosure, and more deeply the process of a transformation of our reality and the reality of all living things, I think, which includes animals, plants, and minerals, according to some of you. I just want to bring all of that kind of cosmic consciousness here, because I think that that is really what disclosure is about, and what will fuel disclosure will be an interactive elevation of the consciousness of, and I see a gentleman back there who will remain nameless who is saying yes. And so, just very briefly, we're talking about the solar cycle 24 from 2009 to 2020, with the solar maximum at 2012 to 2013. And by the index of human excitability that goes back to 500 BC, we know that all revolutions, wars, riots, and the fundamental fixing of things in society happens during the solar maximum, which NASA tells us now is in May of 2013. So in that general term, we're in for some really dynamite stuff. If we want to be change agents in a positive way, now's the time to put out our agenda, as Dr. Bob Dean says. Another cycle is the cycle of the matrix of time acceleration, which Dr. Carl Johan Kalaman and Barbara Hand Clow, a colleague of mine who lives in Vancouver, Canada, also talk about. And that is where time is accelerating, the rate of change is accelerating, the rate of our consciousness is accelerating, and there will be probably, according to this theory, 20 times as much change in the year 2011 as it was between 1999, when the internet started, and the beginning of 2011. So that's the backdrop for how disclosure can take place. And finally, they're the larger galactic and cosmic cycles, sort of the source of our thoughts, of our reality, of our DNA, as well as the stars, is the black hole at the center of our galaxy. Most galaxies have black holes, and how it will be programming the other 97% of our, quote, junk DNA in the coming years, so that we can become more capable of interacting, and therefore things will be disclosed. So I look forward to this process and the process of the weekend.
Thank you, Alfred. I just want to say here that this idea of an index of human excitability, I just think that's such a wonderful name. Yeah. I just love it, and I take it very seriously, but for me that just, it's like, how appropriate is that? And how excitable are we all now, you know, and where's it going to go?
Okay, well, calm right down. And
I'm getting too excited.
I'm getting too excited now. And let's introduce
Nick.
Okay, I'm just plain Nick Pope, no doctor, nothing like that. My background is government, British government. I worked for the Ministry of Defence for 21 years. I did about 7 or 8 different jobs in that period, and the one which has led to me sitting at this table is a job that I did from 1991 through to 1994, when I was responsible for researching and investigating the UFO phenomenon for the British government. The brief was to look at the 200 or 300 UFO sightings we had each year to see whether they were of any defence significance, which rather cleverly in government terms is something that we didn't actually ever define. So perhaps that's a point for later. Anyway, my views on this were that most of these things, of course, turned out to be misidentifications, but there were plenty of cases where these things were seen by pilots and police officers, where they were tracked on radar, performing speeds and manoeuvres which seemed to go significantly ahead of anything in our own inventory, including prototype aircraft and drones. So my position on the UFO phenomenon is that I think whatever it is, and I'm not one of these people that has a neat answer. I'm sure, perhaps there aren't any neat answers in this business. I think there are probably lots of different things going on, lots of overlap. But my position is whatever the nature of this phenomenon or phenomena, I believe it raises some interesting and important defence, national security and air safety issues. Other issues too, which others better qualified than me here are going to discuss on the sort of societal implications, the sociological implications. That's probably less my field. What I'm here to really talk about at this conference is something which has been going for about 1.5 years now, the British government's ongoing programme to declassify and release to the National Archives the entire archive of British UFO files going back to the 50s and coming to the present day. So it's interesting times in the UK, and it's been a story all around the world. I left the Ministry of Defence in 2006. I now work as a freelance journalist, a media commentator, not just on the unexplained, but on conspiracy theories, some political and some defence issues. That's me.
Very good. Thank you.
May I ask a question, please?
Sure.
The material that has been released so far, and I assume you've checked it, looked at it, read it, is there anything in there of any real substance?
Yes, there is. I think what there isn't, let me answer that in reverse. There isn't, and I don't mean this in a disparaging way, but it's a neat soundbite that I have used before. There isn't a spaceship in a hangar smoking gun. That said, there are plenty of those sorts of cases that I was mentioning, where things have been tracked on radar, performing some quite remarkable speeds. Plenty of police cases, plenty of military cases. The one that really stood out, and I discussed it on Fox News, amongst others, was the case of Milton Torres, the fighter pilot who in 1957, whilst a United States Air Force pilot posted over to the UK, was ordered to shoot down a UFO over the mainland UK. So that's a case that I'm going to be discussing in some detail at this conference.
And I want to add that I interviewed as a journalist Milton Torres, and this goes to show that yes, he was ordered to shoot down a UFO in 1957, so there are shoot down orders. But what I saw on a human level, and this is part of Exopolitics also, is that he was very emotional about telling the story. He told it at the X conference with Nick at Stephen Bassett's X conference in April. But as a journalist, when I interviewed him, he was very emotional because his father had died 2 years ago and he had kept this secret for so long, and he began to cry and was very emotional about it. And these people that keep these secrets so long until the Ministry of Defense released these files, it's a huge burden, and there are so many of them, and I think more countries should release their files.
And it's happening.
Absolutely.
It's happening.
Well, disclosure, that's
Yeah.
what it's all about.
Did the Ministry of Defense ever take a position on Peter Horsley's memoir, where he said that he spent an afternoon having tea with an extraterrestrial? And Peter Horsley was a retired air marshal.
Indeed. the Ministry of Defence, so far as I can tell,